I've always loved the idea of doing a 24-hour readathon, but in reality, I sometimes get distracted. I start cleaning my room, I start just doing laundry, I scroll on TikTok, I start to go to film another YouTube video, and suddenly it's 3 hours later and I've gotten nowhere. So this time I wanted to do something different. Let's do a realistic readathon, shall we? One that makes space for a short attention span, some energy crashes, and distractions. In this video, I'm reading for 24 hours loosely. I'm gonna show you what I read, how I keep going without pushing too hard, and the little tricks that I use to stay focused without literally hating life. If you ever thought you could never do this, or reading has been feeling very hard for you recently, then this video is for you. Let's get started. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, welcome back to my bookshelf, and welcome back to my little corner on the internet. My name is Caroline, and I am a full-time research student, but also somebody who loves reading and content creation. So my entire personality trait is trying to fit reading and content creation into my very busy and hectic schedule. This video is all about reading for 24 hours, but also some tips that I found during the way to help me read for long periods of time without feeling burnt out or overwhelmed or having too many energy crashes. But before we get started into the reading portion of the video, I want to talk about why did I decide to do a 24-hour readathon in the first place, and why I think everybody should be doing a 24-hour readathon once in a while. Just a disclaimer, you don't have to be doing this every single month or every single week or every single 2 weeks. I think this could be a little bit daunting and exhausting emotionally wise, but I do think that doing a 24-hour readathon or doing a reading period where you read continuously for long periods of time can really serve as a detox for you, can help you fall back in love with reading, to get you out of a reading slump, and also it just feels like a little reset. A day or 2 or 3 to just focus on reading and resting and recharging and being in the fictional or non-fictional world that you want to be in, and I feel like that serves me very well. And also after doing a 24-hour readathon, looking at the amount of books that I accomplished, I just feel so rewarding, and I feel like, you know, I could do this and I could read a lot of books. So I do advise you to give it a try, to pick out a couple or 10 books and try to finish as many of them in the 24-hour readathon period that you have. Some mindset check-ins: you don't have to feel like you have to finish a certain amount of book in your 24-hour readathon. Whenever you see people doing a 24-hour readathon on the internet, on YouTube, on TikTok, and then you do it yourself and you compare how many books that you were able to finish to how many books that I was able to finish or other people were able to finish, you feel guilty. Don't do that. Everybody has their own reading pace, reading journey, reading experience, and reading tastes. Even if you finish 1 book in that 24-hour readathon, or 2 books, or half a book, that still counts and you're still making progress. The entire purpose of this challenge is to spend as much time with books and really make sure that you're reading, and that's all. So if you're reading and you're having fun and you're immersing yourself in the world, then that's okay. That's exactly the purpose and the objective, and that's exactly the point of the challenge. So I just wanted to give a bit of a mindset check-in before we all do this together and suffer together. Hopefully not, but I think I'm gonna crash out at the 18-hour, 19-hour mark. Let's talk about my TBR for the next 24 hours, aka the books I want to finish in this readathon. In terms of physical books, I have 4 books that I want to finish. First, from the bottom up, we have Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I am intending for this to be a palate cleanser in between my big books and just a fun read. Next, I want to start this series so bad, so I'll be finally reading From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and this is a book talk book, and I'm very much interested to see what's in store for me. When I went to the library last week, I found another book by Mark Danielewski. I read House of Leaves by him a couple months ago, and that was one of the weirdest book, if not the weirdest book that I've ever read. And so when I saw that he had another book on the shelf, this is The 50-Year Sword, I was like, I needed to read this book. Also, it's relatively short, and this is one of those books that look very weird. It looks like to be a poem, but it's a story, so I'm very much interested. Also, it's a very eerie, gothic, you know how Danielewski writes, is a very gothic, dark, twisted, horror-esque story. And then another series, a very beloved series, Anne of Green Gables by Montgomery, and and this is, I've heard the Plant-Based Bride on YouTube talks about this book a lot, and it's essentially her favorite childhood read. In terms of digital reads, I have The Golden Sun, which is the second book in the Red Rising Saga trilogy by Pierce Brown. I'm almost done with that book, so I also hopefully will be able to finish that in this 24-hour readathon. And then I have a couple of arcs that I've been given to read. I have The Book of Lost Hours. I just started that book today. And then The Secret Book Society, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to finish that book in this vlog. And in terms of audiobooks, I'm listening to Rule of the Aurora King. This is the second book in the Artifact of Uranus Quartet series, so I'll be finishing that in this vlog. That is a very long list, but I think my top 3 books that I want to finish in this vlog, I have to finish them, is The Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. I also want to get to reading A Great Big Beautiful Life or Anne of Green Gables. And then along those lines, my first tip in terms of picking out your TBR is to be intentional with the books that you choose. By that I mean having a diverse selection of genres that you can pick from, also different formats that you can pick from. As you can see, I have romance, fantasy, weird, horror-esque book, and also I have a lot of formats going on. I have physical copies, I have digital reads, and I have audio books, so I can make sure that I could read as much as possible and for as long as possible. So that's the first tip that I have. But also on that note, don't limit yourself to only 4 books on your TBR. Have more than enough books to choose from, because especially when you're reading for long periods of time, you're gonna most likely mood read. That means picking the books that you feel most likely to be in the mood for to read. I think that's easier for you to immerse in that book rather than following a very strict and rigid TBR and not feeling those books, if that makes sense. So I always have more books than enough, because I don't know, for example, if one book seems very interesting to me now, but 18 hours into the challenge, that book does not look very promising to me then. Long story short, be intentional with your TBR, but also don't limit yourself to how many books you can read in a certain period of time. Okay, on that note, I will be starting the challenge. Let me set it up to 24 hours and then we could start reading. Are we ready? 3, 2, 1, go. There we go. The challenge is officially started and we have 24 hours left. I'll go read now and I'll check back with you in a couple of hours.
It takes only a few seconds before it sloughs away.
Hi everybody, this is a bit of a reading update. So it's been 9 hours and so I have 15 hours and 43 minutes left on the clock, and everything has been going better than I expected and I thought, because this time around I have audiobooks, so it's a bit easier to read now instead of just reading for 9 hours straight holding a book, and that was a bit daunting last time around. But on that note, I finished one book, which is The Rule of the Aurora King, the second book to the Artifacts of Uranus, and I really enjoyed that book. It was so good. I gave it a 4.25 stars and I really enjoyed everything, and I'm listening to the third book as of now. I'm on chapter 12. I also have a digital copy on my e-reader, but after finishing this book I think I'm gonna switch to trying to finish Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. I've been putting that book off and I need to finish it because we have other books to finish, but so far one book down and I'm very happy. But on that note, I want to give you some tips. The first tip that I always follow whenever I'm doing kind of reading marathons like these is to read in snippets and different chunks. You don't have to sit and read for an hour, 2 hours straight. You can break them up into 15 minutes, 30 minutes interval increments, and that helps a lot in terms of keeping my attention span and making sure that I'm also allowing myself to rest in between my reading sessions, or else I'm gonna go insane. And also have something else to do and not just reading. Let's be realistic. Some of us, we have jobs to do, we have errands to do, we have other things to do. So sometimes setting that 15-minute timer, 30-minute timer, just breathe away really helps with my attention span especially. Also on that note, another timer that you could set is an active rest timer, because I found that whenever I'm doing one of these marathons, I get too carried away in terms of reading that I sometimes forget that I also need to take a break from the books. Sometimes I just have to force myself to stand up, to walk around, to go outside, to stretch, to do something else than just reading. reading. That also helps to make sure that you can persist throughout this 24-hour readathon or just read for long periods of time, because if you just sit there and read for 10 hours straight, that also A, hurts your back. You shouldn't be doing that, and B, it tires you of reading very, very quickly. So set 2 timers, set a timer for you to read in increments, but also set an active rest and stretch and go away timer from reading. It's been a little bit over than an hour since the last time that I talked to you, and I have 13 hours and 56 minutes left, so almost halfway through. I just took a break from reading and I went out for a walk, but then it just started pouring down, so I thought let's get back into my little hub and then started reading. But in terms of a book update, I am on chapter 27 of the 3rd book in the Artifacts of Uranus series called The Fate of the Sun King, and so far I'm very much enjoying it. This series is such a slow burn, steamy romance that I did not expect for it to go this slow in terms of their romantic aspects, even though their romance is obviously the main focal point of the series. But then there are other things going outside of their romance, and there are things happening to this realm of Uranus, so it didn't feel like it was too slow. One thing that contributes a lot to me reading faster this time around is having audiobook, and I feel like that's another tip, is that at least to have different formats going on during your 24-hour readathon or however long you want to continue reading. And I just found out another way to immersive read that I really enjoy. I was just putting on my earbuds and then listening to the audiobooks, but also reading the book as I'm listening, and I feel like that's just such a holistic and immersive experience that I've never experienced something like that before. And I know people have been talking about immersive reading before, but this is my first time testing it out, and I actually really enjoyed that. You don't have to pay for a subscription. You can borrow audiobooks from your local library or through Libby or through Hoopla. I think they're all free. Obviously, you're gonna have to wait a little bit because many people might be in line, but you know, it's free. But if you want to try out something new, I'm actually testing something called Storytel. It's based in Europe, I think, but they have other countries that they work in. I'm testing out their subscription, and the only reason why I decided to test an audiobook subscription to begin with is I wanted to read more, and also I'm just like very curious to experience what it feels like to be immersively read. And basically it's different from Audible and other popular subscription-based audiobook platforms in that you pay a one-time fee per month. It's a monthly subscription, but you get unlimited listening hours and ebook reads, which is different from Audible and audiobook.com. I think the other subscription-based platforms, they only give you a certain credits hours to use or certain hours that you can listen to. So I'm still testing this app out. So if you're like reading in Europe or other countries in the world, check it out. I think it's a very good, affordable alternative to Audible and other subscription platform services in terms of audiobooks. Keep in mind their selection is not as diverse and wide as Audible. Obviously it's owned by Amazon, so it's obviously like huge and massive, but I think it's worth it, you know, like it's cheaper, unlimited listening hours, pick and choose. So yeah, have different formats. That's gonna help you read so much faster, trust me. Update, I have officially reached the halfway mark of this challenge, and I wanted to give you a bit of a halfway check-in, halfway update. I'm actually feeling very good. I just finished showering and I was listening to Fate of the Sun King on the audiobook and on my phone during the time that I shower and do my skincare and also do the dishes, and I feel so good. I'm just like so glad that I have that peace of mind of knowing that I will be able to finish the book because I'm listening to it actively. That means that most of my time will be spent consuming stories and fantasies, and I'm just like falling in love with this method of reading that I just found. Even this morning when I was doing laundry, I also just like put my earbuds in and listened to the audiobook, and I just loved it, you know, just like be able to listen to the audiobook instead of reading for just like 20 to 30 minutes really takes my mind off of things and it doesn't tire my eyes out. The goal is to read for the next 2 hours, so I have only 10 hours to read for tomorrow, which I think is still a lot. So I think I definitely have to wake up a bit earlier tomorrow and actively read more. I do want to finish Fate of the Sun King tonight, and then I think I'm gonna take a break from that series. I think I'm gonna also take a break from Golden Sun. I've been feeling a lot more intimidated with that book. I don't know why. Maybe because I was reading this series and I was in the middle of a climax and an action scene that when I was like trying to read Golden Sun yesterday, I could not focus on the world and my mind was just like zoning out. Maybe squeezing 2 series at the same time is not a good idea. I think I'm gonna read The 50-Year Sword by Mark Danielewski next, and then I also want to get started on Anne of Green Gables. I think we could finish 2 other books. Let's see how well I can do tomorrow. If not, a book and a half is good for me. I heard somebody saying that Fate of the Sun King, the 3rd book, has such a big cliffhanger at the end. I really like how the author does such a good job at kind of like gradually expanding the scope of the story in a very subtle but nuanced way. What I mean by that is that the first book seemed to focus only in, Nostraza and Aphelion, which is the 2 countries in this world. But then I'm at book 3 now, but I feel like there are already hints being dropped in book 3 for book 4. So I recommend checking out Artifacts of Uranus if you're interested. It basically talks about Lore, which is our female main protagonist. She was thrown into Nostraza, which is one of the worst, if not the worst, prisons in all of Uranus, along with her 2 other siblings, Willow and Tristan. And they basically had to spend almost a decade and even more in that shithole of a place. And then one day she got into trouble and she was sentenced to 2 weeks in a place called the Hollow, which is like this forest, but it's very, very dark and very dangerous, and there are lots of weird creatures that could kill you and eat you alive basically. That's when she got kidnapped by the prince or the king of the neighboring country, which is Aphelion, and there she was semi-forced to practice in the trials of the Sun Queen. Whoever wins that trials will marry the Sun King, and that's when she kind of got herself tangled into this very political mess of Uranus at large, but also specifically with the Sun King. Shit hits the fans and everything just goes wild, and everybody apparently has their own little secrets and everybody has their own little snippets and stories to share. I've devoured almost 3 books out of 4 in the series in the last 2 days. That tells you how much I'm actually enjoying the journey. I'm going on such a good ride. I'm gonna check back with you in a couple of hours, maybe tomorrow morning, and we can talk about the plan of reading for Sunday. But everything is going well. I'm enjoying this. I feel very much at peace with being in my little corner, reading the world away, listening to audiobooks, and just be immersed in the stories of all these characters that I found so very interesting and fascinating and very much powerful people. So I really, really like that. So yeah, happy reading. I'll catch you in a second. Another thing that helps me a lot in terms of reading for a long period of time is to change your reading spots. By this I mean you don't have to stay in one reading spot and read. I mean that sounds pretty obvious, but I feel like some people, they don't realize it, or it's like a subconscious thing. But I really feel like changing your reading spots can help kind of refresh your mood, especially if you're feeling like your brain's frying off or you're not in the mood of reading but you still are committed to reading. Then I would say go to a cafe, put in your audiobooks and go for a walk, go to the gym, exercising in between, or just like go to the library and be surrounded by books. I also go to my local Starbucks and local bookstores around campus, but mostly my local library, and I just really like the feeling of being there and being surrounded by other readers who are also reading in the library, and taking a 5-10 minute 15 minutes to just look and immerse yourself and change your reading spots. I feel like that's a very great thing that you can do for you mentally. Change your reading spots. It doesn't have to be the library. Go somewhere, your favorite spot, your favorite cafe, vintage store, thrift store, whatever that is. Even if you cannot go around and have the luxury of being surrounded in the big city with lots of stores, your own space in your own room, you can change it up. Sometimes just like moving towards the window or reading in the kitchen also helps as well. Just make sure you change your reading spots. So sometimes I just like change reading positions even, and also you can have a different vibe for each spot, and that can primes your brain to think that, oh, you're actually in a different spot, even though you're technically not, if that makes sense. It is Sunday morning and I have 9 hours left. We are actually doing very good on time as of now, and I'm very proud. A bit of a reading update. I finished, as you can tell, Fate of the Sun King. The cliffhanger of that book was actually insane. I actually finished another book last night, which was actually very good. I read The 50-Year Sword by Daniel Esky. This is a very short book. It's written in a way that's very similar to a poem, an epic poem. It's a very interesting blend between a poem or poetry and, novel or short stories and a novella, which I really enjoyed. I'm gonna read you the blurb on the dust jacket of this book because, to be honest, I don't really know how to explain it. One Halloween night, at a party held at an East Texas ranch house, a local seamstress named Chintana finds herself thrown into the role of a chaperone for 5 rambunctious orphans. Not surprisingly, the children's energies prove barely containable, even with promises of a cake and a storyteller. The storyteller, however, is not what anyone expects. Looming and cloaked in dark, he entertains the orphans with a tale twisted out of vengeance and violence. He does not come empty-handed either. At their feet, he sets a long, narrow box sealed with 5 latches. "I am a bad man with a very black heart," he warns them. "And it was only that badness and blackness which forced me to seek out what I have carried now for many years and brought this night for you." An unsettling thing to say to anyone, especially to children. But as Chintana soon discovers, this is just the beginning. Her concerns only mount as the storyteller offers more and more menacing details about what consequences lie hidden within that long, narrow box. To make matters worse, the orphans, one by one, lean forward and lift the latches. That is the 50-year sword. This is a solid 3.75 star. It took a turn that I did not expect. This is also another very, I think, thought-provoking metaphor that I'm still wrapping my head around. And then as of this morning, I've been listening to the 4th book in the Artifacts of Urano series, The Tale of the Heart Queen. But I don't think that's going to be the main focal point of today. I'm actually gonna crack open Anne of Green Gables now, and hopefully I will be able to read this and finish this today. It is rather short, but we'll see. It is another well-beloved book and series on the internet, and I'm very much excited. I'm gonna check back in a couple of hours and then give you another update. Having a mindset is very important when it comes to reading for a certain amount of time or doing a readathon. So here are some mindset tips to have you keep going. The first one is to let go of perfection. I know that even though you set out reading with a TBR, but keep in mind you are not going to be able to finish all of them, and that's fine. Even if you have to do a 180 and dump off the books that you wanted to read and pick out new books, that's also okay as well. Not everything is going accordingly to plan, especially if you're doing a readathon. The second mindset shift that I think you should do is to not feel guilty if you cannot focus. This is something that I also am struggling with. We are, I think, 18 hours into the challenge, and I am feeling a bit daunting and jarring. Do not feel guilty that it's harder for you to focus, especially at this mark hour, at this time in the challenge, because you've been reading straight for a day, almost a day, and it's a normal phenomenon for you to not be able to concentrate as well as you would if you were just starting the challenge. Third, do not compare yourself to super readers who can complete like 6, 7, 8 books in this 24-hour readathon. I also thought that I was gonna be one of those people, but then when I actually did a readathon, it was actually harder than I thought, and reading 3 books and finishing them was actually very satisfying for me and my goals. Know that it's okay, and everybody's experience is gonna be different. You don't have to be like me, you don't have to be like other people. The 4th mindset shift is to stop treating reading like a homework and assignment and start treating it like a hobby and something enjoyable. This is something that's kind of hard, especially if you're doing a challenge and actively working towards a goal and objective. I also feel like this. I'm also actually feeling like this. Like I have to complete a certain amount of books in this 24-hour readathon. And also because I do content creation, I cannot help but compare my video and my progress to other people 24-hour readathon or their version of this challenge, you know what I mean? But I always have to keep reminding myself that I do this for my own good, and I do this for my own reset, detox, and for me to fall in love with reading and love this process of sitting down and enjoying this fictional world and be immersed in it. Do not get caught up in having to feel like because you set out to do this challenge that you have to finish a goal and try desperately and in vain and by all means to finish the goal. I mean, it's good that you have that ambitious spirit about you, you. But at the end of the day, be very grounded in your goal of why you're doing this challenge. For me, it's like to detox, to have a reset, to set a time in a month where I could just read for like 2 days straight. But for you, it could be trying to tackle your TBR and, you know, trying to get back into reading. No matter what your goal is, the central point should be reading and making sure that you're enjoying this, because if you want to pursue this as a hobby, the central focus point of this entire thing is that you have to enjoy reading and you have to be able to be content with yourself just sitting there and reading, you know, and doing nothing. And I feel like that's for me is very, very fulfilling. And finally, you are allowed to feel like your brain is frying off. Know that you're gonna be frustrated, you're gonna feel like you're not reading good enough, you're not reading fast enough. Know that you're gonna feel all of those emotions and be fine with that. Reassure to yourself time and time again as you're doing this challenge that you are allowed to feel all of those emotions and can still keep going and can still keep reading, and those emotions are there for a reason. Reading sometimes can be very hard, obviously, but doing a challenge where you just sit there and you read for a very long time can actually push the negative feelings up to the surface faster than you normally would. If you can overcome this period of time and you can really push yourself and read even after you feel all of those negative emotions, and I feel like your relationship with reading and books and your reading journey in general will become so much better, and you will feel this very rewarding experience and emotions after you finish the challenge and know that you are capable of reading for long periods of time. Guys, we have less than 2.5 hours left before we finish the challenge. I'm very much happy that I could actually finish the challenge today and don't have to worry about it tomorrow. And I officially arrived at page 217 of Anne of Green Gables, and I'm actually very enjoying this book. This is so heartwarming and this is such a comfort read, and I would definitely be continuing the series. I don't know what it is about this specific edition, but the smell of this book is so nostalgic, and I just love the smell of new books, you know what I mean? So the plan is to finish this book today, which I feel like we can. I don't know if we can get to Great Big Beautiful Life though, but it's okay. And in terms of my last tip to help you kind of read for long periods of time, I would say take a very good break. Last time that I did this challenge, I took a nap in between reading. I know that I mentioned at the beginning of the video that you have to set active timers to rest in between, but a big break in my opinion is like 30 an hour of just like not reading and doing something else or doing another hobby, you know what I mean? There's a saying that distance makes a heart grows fonder, and I feel like that kind of applies in a very weird way to reading, especially for long periods of time. Just taking a break, and whenever I come back stronger or ready to read. Even if you're doing this challenge, you're committed to doing and reading for long periods of time. But I think it's valid and it's very understandable for you to take long breaks in between and not feel guilty for it. So that's my last tip. I'm gonna go read or go make dinner, and then I'll catch you in a second, maybe later tonight or tomorrow morning to close out the vlog. And then I also will be giving you a bit of a wrap up on the books that I read, the rating, my thoughts, my reflection, and everything between. Finally, we're done. That is a lot of hours of reading. But I'm still reading Anne of Green Gables. I have, I think, 20 pages left. I could still read for a little while, but we have officially done with the 24-hour readathon. I'm so happy. Also hoping that you also finished your challenge with me. We've done it, and I'm so proud. I'm so proud of myself for reading so many books in this challenge, but I'm also very proud of you for sticking through and pushing through and finishing the challenge and finishing it with such excitement and joy in your heart, and knowing that you love reading even more after this challenge. Time for the final update and ratings. In total, I read 4 books during this 24-hour readathon, which was so good and I was so glad. So in terms of audiobooks and digital reads, I finished Fate of the Aurora King, which is the second book in the Artifacts of Urano series, also the third book, Fate of the Sun King, and I'm reading Tale of the Heart Queen, and I think I could finish that book in a couple of days days or two. For Rule of the Aurora King, I gave that book a 4.25 stars. I thought it was solid, it was good, it was better for sure than the first book, Trial of the Sun Queen. I really appreciate the amount of depth and, slow burn that the author takes the time to make sure that the entire series is not just about the romance aspect. Fate of the Sun King, I also gave it a 4.25 star. It ended on such a big cliffhanger and I immediately had to start listening to book 4. In terms of physical books, I finished The 50-Year Sword by Mark Danielewski. This is such an interesting book and I gave this book a 3.75 stars. It's not too gruesome or heavy. This is dark in a very psychological and haunting way, if that makes sense. It makes you think a lot about what is the deeper meaning behind this thing, because like I mentioned, I feel like this is a representation of something. I'm just not sure what. And then last night we finished Anne of Green Gables as well. I gave this book, I think, a 4 stars. I think it was solid. It was so good. I'm growing attached to Anne and I definitely can see the romance brewing. I also kind of picked up on very interesting themes about feminism and sexism and the patriarchy in this society. Her characteristics and her personalities are just so outspoken. She's so animated and vivid and lively, and there's such an optimism about her that is so contagious and infectious. So those are the 4 books that I finished in this 24-hour readathon. Let me know what books you finished in this 24-hour readathon that we did together. In terms of tips recap, I think the biggest thing is to make sure your mindset is very grounded, very clear what your objective is, and then make sure that you understand why you're doing this in the first place. And I think this is a good challenge to start if you are thinking of getting back into reading, or you're new to reading and you don't know, or you're just making up excuses for yourself of I don't have time to read, I don't know what to read, yada yada yada. I feel like this is such a good opportunity for you to just do it. Start your reading journey, start documenting it, start reading, read in snippets and read in chunks. Also set active timer for resting and stretching. Switch up your platforms, audiobook, physical book, digital books. Romanticize reading if you want to. Make some tea. Do whatever you need to do to start reading and spend time in this fictional world that we all love and adore. The final thing that I'm gonna leave you is that reading can be frustrating, so allow yourself to feel all of the emotions and embrace them. There's nothing wrong with feeling frustrated, but also if you feel like this is too much, you can just end the challenge, and I think that's still good enough. Every single person's journey is different, so do everything at your own pace, read at your own pace. Do not compare you to me or you to other super readers, and then just enjoy reading. And let me know down in the comments if you enjoy spending time with me and then you're doing a 24-hour readathon together. I was looking at my journal where I have all of the books that I read in July listed, and I was counting them off and I was like, oh my god, I got to 12 books already in the middle of July. So every single time that I complete a challenge like these, I feel so rewarded and it just it keeps me going. So yeah, that's a long ramble enough, but I hope you enjoyed this video and also spending time with me. I hope you found this video helpful in terms of the tips that can help you read for longer periods of time. Let me know if you're thinking of doing one or you did one already, and how do you feel doing a 24-hour readathon. I would love to hear a discussion in the comments. Thank you for listening and I'll see you in a second. Happy reading!